The Rakuzaichi is probably my favorite arc in all of Kagurabachi for a multitude of reasons. The tragedy of the Sazanami clan, how different characters develop throughout the arc, on top of all of the hints of lore we get that lead to events later down the line. But the most important for this video specifically is the Rakuzaichi arc. I think does a really good job of showing the capabilities of the verse up to that point from a power scaling perspective. It's also an extremely fun what-if scenario arc where you could input different characters from different series and see if they can perform just as well, if not better, than Chihiro and company, which is exactly what I'll be doing in this video. Now, who will be the ones replacing the original squad to see if they can successfully stop the Rakuzaichi? It would be none other than Team Descaris from Ichi the Witch. Chihiro will be replaced by Ichi and Gokuraku, Shibo will be replaced by Descaris, and Komugi will be hiding somewhere outside probably. Now, to make this hypothetical work, Hakure will have to stay and help since no character from Team Descaris can access Kyora's storehouse. And with no access to the storehouse, it would just end with the Tsunuchi being bought by the Kabanabi, since I don't think Kyora would willingly teleport them into his storehouse to fight. And the Kabanabi just buying the Tsunuchi would be a really lame ending anyways. I'll first start by going over what each character from Team Descaris is capable of, starting with Ichi. Ichi has a couple different magics at his disposal that he can use and switch between for specific purposes. First, he has the Raiko magic, which allows him to shoot a bolt of lightning towards his foes, this lightning specifically being able to boil his opponent's blood if it comes into contact with anything. He also has the Hisame magic, allowing him to freeze his opponents and create ice sharks that actively hunt down and freeze anything they touch in an instant. The Origuma magic is his third magic, allowing him to insert invisible threads into someone without them knowing and then activate them on his command. The second to last magic is Lord Bakugami, a magic capable of giving out sorrow. This includes using sorrow as a shield or even producing trauma-inducing hallucinations that mentally break you down. Finally, all of these magics can be amped by Uroro, but we've only seen two so far. The first being the Hisame amp, which summons an army of ice sharks to form a giant ice shark, and Inazuri, which creates a giant ball of blood-boiling lightning, ensnaring anyone inside. However, these are one-time uses as Ichi gets knocked out whenever trying to use these abilities. Next is Gokuraku. Gokuraku is a martial art focused fighter, mainly using simple punches and kicks. Each attack is followed up by a percentage, his normal rate being around 10 to 40%. Once he starts to reach 50% or above, his body slowly begins to break as he can't handle the force output. His trump card is a singular 100% attack that renders his body essentially useless afterwards. And finally, we have Descaris, the strongest witch in Ichi the Witch. She has a multitude of magic attacks and magics to use at her disposal. First, her magics being Golconda, a spell that traps the user into always telling the truth, and Tortle and Ding Dong, magics used to trap her opponents. She has much larger magics like Ishkandar and Yatsukami, but unless she wants to destroy the entire auction house, which probably wouldn't be the best, I doubt she'd use them in this scenario. As for basic magic, she has Lazud, which is a piercing attack that causes an explosion. Explode Lapta does the same, and then she can summon barriers to stop attacks and is also trained in swordsmanship as well. With all the characters out of the way and their abilities explained, let's get into this hypothetical. The auction starts as normal with all the bodyguards surrounding the auction house, a 50 million yen bid on Ichi. However, Descaris is unable to sneak inside like Shiba did, and therefore there would be no distraction with the lights being cut off. This is when Mr. Inazuma runs inside trying to save his sister. Shortly after, Ichi, Descaris, and Gokuraku would walk towards the entrance of the building, alerting the guards that he's here. He would be unable to sneak past and a fight would ensue outside of the building. The large commotion would confuse some of the guards inside and cause them to see what was going on the outside. This would leave the rest to make fun of Mr. Inazuma and try to kill him. That's before a flash of white swoops in and saves the child, the man being stabbed by Descaris and exploded with her using Lazud. The 208th Rakuzaichi has officially begun. We would then get a flashback of Hakure telling everyone about the storehouse and how there's no true way to access it. In fact, without any prior knowledge, I would find it hard to justify them knowing about the fake door through Hakure, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt just to make it more fun. After saving Mr. Inazuma, Descaris would make her exit and leave the men inside to Ichi and Gokuraku, who just finished cleaning up the guards outside. Another battle would begin, this one being joined by Hiyuki and Tafuku, helping them take out the rest of the guards on the main floor and splitting up on their own separate ways. Heading downstairs, we would see Hakuri run past his brothers and go to meet up with Ichi and Gokuraku. Soya would of course run after Hakuri, leaving Descaris to fight the other three Iso brothers. Hakuri would lead Soya upstairs to meet with Ichi and Gokuraku, only for them to be cut off by a wall set up by Yura. Our first true fight would begin, Ichi and Gokuraku versus Yura. If this was a normal 1v1, I'd actually like Yura's chances a lot. Both Ichi and Chihiro at this time show blatant feats of fighting characters that can move at or faster than lightning, and Yura is clearly able to keep up and even outsmart Chihiro, forcing Chihiro to push Cloud Gouger past his limits. Granted, this Chihiro wasn't 100% after his fight with Sojo, so you can take that with a grain of salt. However, Yura is now fighting two characters who can move at these lightning levels of speed, and I find it hard for him not getting overwhelmed here. Yes, he'd put up a good fight and maybe even trap one of them like he did with Chihiro, but I highly doubt that. Not to mention Ichi and Gokuraku have far more abilities at their disposal to use against Yura. Ichi would eventually figure out that they need to break through the wall to get back up with Hakuri, and would most likely get Gokuraku to use 50% simple punch to bust through the wall. This would allow Hakuri, who pushed Soya through the wall, to join back up with them. On top of that, Hiyuki would make her entrance from the top of the stairs, turning this into a 4v1 against Yura. Despite Yura coming away with less injuries than before, he would still decide to retreat and fight another day. Meanwhile, downstairs, Descaris would have easily finished off the other three Iso brothers. They're all semi-relative to Chihiro, who we already established was around a lightning timer. Descaris, on the other hand, has shown that she can far surpass and even outpace these lightning timers from multiple meters away. She would have no problem making short, if not shorter, work of the Iso brothers than Shiba did. This would prompt Tenri to use the Dantenseki and begin to fight once again. Descaris would notice the speed increase, but considering it's an unquantifiable amount, she would most likely be able to handle Tenri and the others with ease. Hakuri would then be left to fight Soya for a second time, allowing Ichi and Gokuraku to help Descaris. Hakuri completes his fight like normal, and the three Iso brothers are most likely killed by Ichi and company instead of being saved, mainly due to the power gap between both sides. This is when they would find out that the door is a fake and make their way to the auction floor, to which Hakuri teleports Ichi and Gokuraku into the storehouse, beginning their clash with Kiora. This fight would go fairly similar to the original fight with Chihiro, since Kiora shows relativity to this same Chihiro, who is around the same level as Ichi in terms of speed, and blatantly puts him on the back foot in their fight, despite being weakened due to his projection. But now with Gokuraku, they could have a plan where Hakuri could imbue his spirit energy into Gokuraku and use him as a teleporter to get most of the merchandise out. This plan could potentially work, but it wouldn't be as fast as Chihiro did it, causing him to miss some to help Ichi out. While the fight is going on in the storehouse, Descaris and company would be able to help whoever got out to the getaway car and then going back inside to cause chaos. This would force Kyora's hand into auctioning the Shinichi. The fight would then play out fairly similar to the main story, but with Ichi and Gokuraku gaining the upper hand thanks to Hakuri teleporting them around with his spirit energy, landing a fatal blow to Kyora and leaving him inside of the ground of the storehouse. This is when he would acquire the Shinichi, starting the final fight. Ichi and Gokuraku would be down on their luck, Hakuri struggling to keep pace with them. This stream of bloodlust coming from the Shinichi would send Ichi's death for death radar through the roof. I could see Ichi wanting to use an Uroro amped ability, but due to the people most likely still left in the storehouse, he wouldn't want to have them caught in the crossfire. Hiyuki would then come up to Hakuri and be teleported inside. A 3v1 of Ichi, Gokuraku, and Hiyuki would fight against Kiora, causing them all to leave the storehouse due to it collapsing. The auction house would be in utter chaos, people running and screaming to leave the building as Kiora loses control over the Shinichi, eventually dying on the stage, overcome by the sword. An anticlimactic way to end the battle, but I don't see much changing in the end from the regular manga. Now, I wanted to keep this hypothetical as close to the real thing as possible because, in all honesty, Descaris alone with the help of an awakened Hakuri would have just run right through the entire Rakuzaichi by herself and had been just fine in the end, finishing every fight in a couple seconds or in a couple minutes. When it's all said and done, Ichi and company would perform almost as well as Chihiro did, but with a couple more storehouse belongings being lost, maybe including a couple people as well. If you want to see more hypotheticals like this, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe while hitting the notification bell.